Welcome to the Wellness as a Way of Life podcast, your one-stop, all-encompassing source of wellness, knowledge, wisdom, inspiration, and motivation. Here we teach you why not all wellness trends are for you, how to figure out which ones are, how to best adapt them for your personal wellness toolbox, and how ultimately to integrate your wellness practices so fully that they become to feel like brushing your teeth. A foundational part of who you are and not a check mark on your to-do list. Here we know that in order for health and wellness to be sustainable, we need a less is more approach, leaving the information overload and tips overwhelm behind. I'm your host, Megan Swan, creator of the Wellness as a Way of Life course and the Sustainable Integrated Wellness Approach. I have more than a decade of experience in the wellness industry and on my own personal wellness journey, learning how to tune into and trust my intuition and drown out all the noise. As a certified IIN health coach, detoxification expert, plant-based chef, yoga teacher, and coach, I will help you distill down the information overload and feel more confident and at ease in your own skin again. So let's swan dive in. Very excited to do a deep dive on tea and tea ceremonies. This was a beautiful aspect of the retreat that I recently got back from in Tuscany, Italy, with Srimati or Julie Pyatt and Rich Roll. Julie and her spiritual sidekick Mel are tea ceremony junkies, if you will, and they spoke absolutely beautifully about the power of communing every morning in a group or by yourself, but with the leaves of the trees. In many places in the world, these tea trees have been growing for centuries, and there's so much wisdom in the leaves and wisdom in the silent ceremony, the beauty, the art, the ritual of the pouring and the serving of the tea, but also just starting your day with this warm liquid, hydrating the body gently and sitting in silence with someone else or on your own can be so powerful. So I will share in the notes all the information and inspiration you need to start your own ceremony at home. Today on the podcast, I'm so thrilled to get to know Jenny Tse. She is the founder and owner of Sipping Streams Tea Company. She was born in Hong Kong and raised in Fairbanks, Alaska. Sipping Streams has won first, second, and third at the North American Tea Championships and second prize at the Global Tea Championships. Sipping Streams has also been featured in Fresh Cup magazine, Edible Alaska, and on NPR. Jenny is the best-selling author of The Essence of Tea and the host of the Essence of Tea podcast. Recently, Sipping Streams Tea Company also started an experimental tea farm in Alaska using geothermal heat. So looking forward to diving right in. Welcome, Jenny. I am so excited to jump into this conversation with you. I am a massive fan of tea, and I'm just thrilled to be talking to someone who is such an expert. Tell us more about how you integrate tea into your personal day-to-day.
So I grew up as a coffee drinker, actually. And so I didn't get into tea till my last year of college, but I do drink tea every day. I probably have already had half a gallon of tea already. So instead of drinking water, I'm not really a water person. I don't really like the flavor, the taste of water. And I didn't grow up drinking water. Like some people drink water all the time. It's their thing. But for me, I I didn't have that type of upbringing. So I like flavor in my water instead of drinking a bunch of soda or energy drinks or even juice, right? Because it's got a lot of sugar in it still. I drink tea like all day long. And I usually drink like tea, like today I had a black tea from India. So I usually just drink like a regular tea. And yes, it has caffeine in it, but just drink tea every day, all day long, wake up, start my kettle. It's kind of a nice ritual to just focus on just making something, you know?
Mm.
So instead of the go, quick drive through attitude of there's so many things to do, I just like turning on the kettle and literally like waiting for the hot water to get ready.
And are you intentional about the pour, about the first cup, about the kind of cup you drink it in, or is it kind of, given that you say you drink it all day long, is it sort of on the go at the same time?
So it's not like I have like this gigantic mug, and it's a mug. It's literally, I don't even know how to say
It's like
how
a
many
bowl.
ounces. It's like, yeah, it's like a pot. And I got this mug when I was in Disney World, when I was in high school, because I used to nationally compete in jump rope. And it has Tigger on it. It says triple XL espresso. Well, there's no espresso and it's just tea. But so yeah, it's like a gigantic bowl. And I just made the tea in it. And so if I'm going to make like specialty tea, then I'll probably pay more attention to like the pour and the nuances of this rare, delicate, unique handcrafted tea. But it was just some black tea I found this morning, loose leaf. It was still loose leaf. So I put in my infuser, and I had a bunch of projects today. So I was like, I'm just gonna stand here and wait for the hot water to boil. Just like literally, even if it's like 5 seconds it took longer than 5 seconds. But you know what I mean? That mindset. Some people or I get so stressed, like, oh, I gotta go. And then you're like, no, I'm just gonna at least take a moment to just stand here and wait for the hot water. So I used to a long time ago, like when I first started my business 16 years ago, go into my shop, be the first one there, be more mindful of my tea experience for myself. But since I stay up so late working and I get up so early working, that I'm just like, well, at least this is my moment for right now. And I know it can change and evolve as seasons change for all of us, and we know that. So do I want to be more mindful? I would first of all like to have much like higher end rare specialty teas every day if I could. And with that, then of course I would spend more time on the aroma, the appearance of the leaves, like all the nuances and appreciating the tea more, if that makes sense. But I didn't have like a super fancy tea today. So I just picked a loose leaf tea. I get samples all the time. So I do have tea bag teas, but they just don't taste very good. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make myself a nice loose leaf black tea.
Yeah, well, tell us the benefits of loose leaf versus the bags that we can all buy in the supermarket.
Yeah, so the teas that you can buy in the supermarket are typically a much lower quality tea. And if you actually check the weight per bag, like the grammage or even the ounce, but usually it's 2.5 grams of tea makes a single serving. And you'll be shocked to know that there's not even a full serving in a regular grocery store tea bag. Like, that's why you can't re-steep your tea 4 times in a day. That's why you can't drink that tea all day long. It's not only got less tea than a real serving's supposed to have in it, it's also really low quality in the fact that it could be sitting on the shelf or on the shelf or in the package for who knows how long, right? Because it's dried, it's like an herb. And so it's not going to technically go bad, but it can lose its essential oils, which is also important for the enjoyment of the aroma and the flavor, and also the nutritional benefits to it. And so otherwise, you're just kind of like drinking flavored water compared to regular loose leaf teas. But also, you just don't know what the packaging is, made out of, like the paper, the metal, the plastic it might be made out of. Most people don't realize that most pyramid tea bags, even those really beautiful silken ones that will have 2.5 grams, an actual real serving of it, because we make our own pyramid tea bags also. And we actually put the full serving amount in it. But they're usually made out of nylon, which is a plastic, right? So like for me, I like to be more conscientious of what I can do in small baby steps as far as for the environment. So ours are not made out of nylon. They're made out of a non-GMO compostable plant-based material. So, it's just different things, but usually in a grocery store, they're not going to have something like that.
Yeah, I've also read that there's all sorts of glues that are in those tea bags that are therefore in
some
your
of
tea.
them have glues. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So like lots of articles and lots of people testing all these different things, and I'm like, oh, I'm good. I don't sell anything like that. So, and because everything we start off with is loose leaf, then everyone has a choice to, make a healthier choice for their bodies, right? And for the environment. But yeah, or it tastes like paper. Like it doesn't even taste like tea. It has that because of the paper fiber or the plant fiber, whatever they use for it. So you're tasting that too. But I know, yeah, because I started on tea journey of not knowing anything about tea because I was a coffee drinker. And I was like, I wonder why they keep putting 2 tea bags in my cup of tea at the coffee shop. And I was like, oh, because the second time I put more hot water and it has no flavor. Oh, it must really not have any flavor to begin with. So it's just certain things I've learned through my own trial and error in my tea journey.
So the teas that you offer, how much do you personally have in the designing of those teas and the combinations?
Oh, so yeah, no, that's a great question. So I oversee all of that, over the product developments, the quality control, the sourcing, all of that. I make all of those decisions. I'm the one who's like inspecting it, evaluating it, getting back with the producer. I'm like, hey, this is not this. This is not what I asked for, that very rarely happens, because what's nice about the tea industry of working with small producers is that they usually care. It's all the middlemen in between that's been like sold and then resold and resold. So if you buy your teas wholesale from a company and you don't ask the questions of like where they got their teas from, not that general question, but like, do you know the people who make your tea? Or, it could just be a reseller of a reseller of a reseller is what I'm saying.
And so are you locally sourcing there in Alaska? Because I would have never thought of Alaska as like a tea place, but
that's a good question.
I definitely think there are cultures there that have always drank tea. So tell us more.
Yeah, so I actually have my own tea farm now that I started 2 years ago, and it's geothermally grown here in Fairbanks, Alaska. So we do have some of our own teas, but it's a very small quantity, and we make it ourselves, like me and my husband. We're the only ones who make it. Like we're picking it, we're harvesting, and we're watering the tea plants, all that stuff. But for any of the wild Alaskan botanicals that do not come from the Camellia sinensis plant that makes green tea and black tea and white tea, we also harvest and process and dry all those ingredients. So even though we try to increase our production yield of the foraging that we do, because people catch on to how amazing our teas are, like every year it sells out faster. And we're like, okay, we gotta do this faster. Like we have our own freeze dryer. We have our own dehydrators we've built, like these gigantic dehydrators, because it wasn't feasible to go buy some like a walk-in, like a walk-in freezer, but it's like a walk-in dehydrator. Yeah, it was just like so crazy expensive. And we're like, okay, but we know about like food processing and stuff like that, because we're also a restaurant. I'm like, okay, if we use this kind of stainless steel and we create this type of a drying, system with fans and with a heater and stuff, we could dry massive amounts of these botanicals. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, beautiful. So what would you say to someone who really is more of a coffee, let's say fan, maybe not addict? What was your process in switching, and what are the benefits to tea opposed to coffee?
So my last year of college, I was studying sports medicine and physical education. And I was spending $4.28 every day at the local coffee shop. So like, I'm a college student, I want to go to the coffee shop, buy something, right? Because I'm not just going to use their space without supporting them. And I had a drink that was $4.28, $4.26 every day. That included the sales tax. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so expensive. I have to pay these student loans back. Okay, what's the cheapest thing on the menu? Oh, tea. So I started drinking tea, and people started asking me all these questions about the health benefits of tea. And I didn't know anything about tea. Like, how do you know? Just drinking this thing is cheap. So for me, unlike some other coffee drinkers who might be switching because of acidity to their guts and their digestive system, like, acid reflux or jitters or, heart palpitations, like these really serious health issues. Like, I was still young and I would just wanted to be more budget friendly. And you can also re-steep good quality tea multiple times. They're meant to be re-steeped up to 4 times, some of them 6 to 8 times. And you're like, wow, in the long run, I'm getting this really good quality tea, getting really good nutrients, getting good flavor for like way cheaper than what a tea bag tea would be. So in that journey, I had learned about like the difference of the quality of the tea. And because I was a coffee drinker, I didn't actually have the, well, I'm Chinese, so I didn't have the perception like, oh, I don't drink tea because it's super grassy. I mean, the only time I really drank tea when I was a kid growing up was like at a Chinese restaurant, because we're Chinese, we go to dim sum and they have all kinds of tea. It's like, whatever. It's like that stuff we just drink because it's there. And so when I started drinking different teas, it started off actually with people giving me tea. They're like, oh, I see you drink tea. You want this tea? And they're emptying out their cupboards and they're just giving me what they have. They're college students, right? And so I'm like, okay, so I try this tea and I try that tea. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm just literally just being open-minded and trying all these different teas. And when I realized that there was a difference of low grade and higher grade tea, like even the cutting and the particle size, my mind was blown. I'm like, oh, I know nothing about tea. If I move into this realm of like, and when I say higher quality tea, most of the time it just has to do with the particle size. So in the coffee related industry, like you got your espresso ground and then you got your coarser ground, like finer ground or coarser ground. So the extraction rate is different. And from my scientific mind, I'm like, oh, that totally makes sense why you can't re-steep the tea, and then why it's so strong and bitter and has all these qualities that come out right away versus a higher quality tea. So then I just realized I didn't know what I didn't know, and hence my tea journey started from there and just trying more things.
And so for someone who wants to start, a tea ritual, what do you recommend? And are there sort of things that someone like yourself in the beginning should know about loose leaf tea and how to prepare it, other than I didn't know that it's meant to be steeped multiple times? I've been throwing out perfectly good tea.
Yeah, it usually tastes stronger the second or third time. And don't worry, I had to be taught this. So, and because I know that, we've won 11 international awards for our teas. And we actually specialize in tea education. But if you're a tea newbie, we get a lot of people who are like curious about tea. There's a lot of myths out there like, oh, tea has less caffeine than coffee. Not actually true. So, I mean, there's so many myths that I didn't know. I mean, I just found them out as my journey went. So I would say for a coffee drinker is if you're going to like want to drink tea because you're curious, but you don't like the grassy flavor, I highly recommend an Assam tea. or an Irish breakfast tea.
Mm.
Irish breakfast typically has Assam leaves in it, and Assam is a state in India, and it has this very rich, dark, frothy, malty mouthfeel. So if you're like me and you like dark, straight up black coffee, it's a great way to go. And what's nice about Assam teas is that they also are great for withstanding milk and sugar. They don't get thinned out and diluted. They're really rich, and they can take on a lot of milk and sugar. So if you're like a latte person, this is still a good one to like make a milky, creamy tea. But we do sell like variety packs, like a sampler pack. So a lot of times non-tea drinkers will come into our store and go, I need to buy a gift, but I don't drink tea. And I'm like, oh, what do they drink? Oh, I don't know. We're like, here's a variety pack. Everyone loves the tea sampler pack. They're like, great, instantly done. So that's a good way, is to just buy a variety and start drinking tea if you can get a variety pack. Otherwise, you might just know people. Surprisingly, so many people just have tea in their cupboards. Like all the tea I got from friends in college, they're like, oh, here, you want this? This is in the back of my cupboard. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try it, I guess. If I don't like it, I can throw it out. You just gave it to me for free. So if you're not wanting to like invest in so much, but I do have a book that I wrote that is all about my own personal tea journey, how I got into tea, how you can tell what different qualities of tea are, the health benefits, and so much more.
Mm. And I think I read on your website that you have sipping circles.
Oh, well, we have these classes. And so we have these classes, and we have a Facebook group, a tribe, where people like to, talk about what type of teas that they're drinking and share with us their observations, their personal experiences. So I guess it could kind of be like a sipping circle, but virtual.
Yeah. Cool. And yeah, what else does somebody need to know in terms of, do you feel like there's essentials equipment, or is it really just about the quality of the leaves, any sort of bowl and hot water?
So what's really funny about that is, like, in the very beginning of my tea journey and when I started my tea company, I went and I visited all these tea farms because I thought in the industry, at least in the US, every tea shop owner went and sourced their teas directly. I don't know why I thought that. I just thought that's what you're supposed to do. So I made it happen. And I went there and I was like, people don't have strainers in their cups. They don't even have a handle. Like, they just throw the tea leaves in there, boiling hot water. So different teas have different temperatures that are recommended, but just boiling hot water in a glass cup with no handles. And you're like, okay, first I'm going to strain this out with my teeth, and then I'm going to like burn my fingers trying to pick this up. And you're like, okay, I guess that's what we do here at this tea farm. But I saw that farm after farm after farm. That's what the farmers did when they're drinking and enjoying their teas. So it's really up to personal preference. You can get a tea strainer, a tea ball. You could, get really into like Chinese tea ceremony where the gaiwan is a strainer, the lid and the bowl. You can get super intricate, but if you're a beginner, you should just get started no matter how imperfect it is. Because you just don't know until you discover what you like yourself. And in the end, the only person that really matters is you who's consuming the tea and why you're consuming it.
Yeah. So how do you personally feel that it's a way of life, other than, it sounds like from dusk till dawn, you're working on producing it yourself, and in that sense, it's a way of life for you. But is there a sort of like a thread that people pull on? I don't know, like the health benefits. Do you think it's more that people turn to it for that, or it's a ritual, or it's just preference?
So the majority of people that I see are attracted to tea because of health and wellness. It's usually a reason why they're switching or why they're curious. For me, it wasn't. It was literally because it was cheap and I was like, okay, I'll just try this stuff. I'm open-minded. And And so with the mission of my tea company, because of health and wellness is really holistic, it's not just about the tea. And in the end, it's not about tea. Our company, Sipping Streams Tea Company's mission is to transform people's lives through the medium of tea. And when you look at health and wellness, it starts with curiosity, then it goes into mindset, and then it goes into gratitude and reflection to up level yourself into the next, 1% improvement of yourself. And so when you look at the benefits of tea, it slows you down. You got to heat up the hot water. I mean, I guess you can have an instant hot water maker, but it's not like someone's just giving it to you like at a drive-through, And so there's some intentionality in it. Then you have to choose because there's way more choices in tea than there are in coffee. Okay. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know, just choose something for me. I'm like, okay, so let me tell you a little about these choices, And so there is some mindfulness. And then you got to go, why am I drinking this? And then you go, I do feel a little bit better about whatever it is, the stress, the noise in your mind, how it makes you relax, like if it's an herbal tea, how it energizes you and how it helps you got through your day, but gave you clear focus. There's different things that different teas do for you. And then also like being thankful that you had the opportunity of that experience, no matter how short it might be or how unintentional it might seem, it's still that tiny bit of wellness is in there and just takes you around that circle again, then that reflection of what you learned back into the mindfulness, right? Into the gratitude, the reflection, and you start to see this energy of this ripple effect of other like-minded people who are on this journey, not necessarily a tea journey, but you'll be surprised. A lot of people who are into health and wellness are into tea. And tea is the number one most consumed beverage in the entire world next to water. So every culture has some sort of practice, ritual, something around tea. Even the local indigenous people of Alaska, they're tea drinkers, or they're like herbal, medicine kind of things, like things that they foraged or whatever. And so you find a lot of people who are possibly tea drinkers or who are on the same tea journey as you, like the percentage, the math itself. And then you find yourself in this community of this connectiveness just because of tea.
I love all that. Thank you. I just wanted to touch quickly before we jump off. I loved how you pulled out that there's just so much variety. Can you kind of take us on a journey through a year in terms of the seasons? What kind of teas do you kind of instinctively go to each season? And is it based on what you're growing or what's it based on?
Well, this is really interesting because just this past weekend, I was selling at a pop-up location for like a springtime holiday type of bazaar, right? So there's different seasons and I sell tea year round. And I actually notice more of what people are gravitating towards, which is very interesting because it has to do with the cycle of our sunlight, of like the weather, of like our nutrition, of what we're consuming. So when you think about someone's well-being, no matter where they are in the world, there are natural cycles. And I was like, that's very fascinating. Everyone's gravitating towards our matcha creamed honey. That's our slowest seller. Everyone's gravitating towards green tea right now, even though they're not even like a big tea drinker. So that's a nice thing about pop-up events is I'm constantly getting feedback, like interactions with people immediately. So I feel like in the springtime, like or say January, right? People are more into health and wellness. You just have the holidays, right? And you might be like, oh, what's good for like being sick or a cold? So I feel like more herbals are like in January. You move into like into March and you have, well, maybe because also St. Patrick's Day, even if you don't believe in St. Patrick's Day, like the colors, right? So you got people into green teas, probably because they've been lacking in green leafy foods in their diet, right? Because in Alaska, there is nobody growing unless, well, at our geothermal greenhouse, there's greens growing year round. But the average person does not have a garden outside. There's snow outside right now, right? So you've kind of like used all the last of your reserves. And then you're getting into this green period and you're craving green teas. Then you've got like the inflammation time, like everything's blooming, everything's like the pollen's coming out, people's allergies, mosquitoes are really huge here in Alaska. We joke that they're our state bird. So people are wanting things that are anti-inflammation. So we highly suggest rooibos just to help with allergies, inflammation. It instantly brings down the irritation of mosquito bites. Like I could just put it on my skin and like stop itching. So like I use rooibos even topically. And then you go into summertime and people are like into iced teas. At least in America, iced tea is like a really big thing. So they might be craving more of black teas, right? And then strong black teas, you can add other things to it, or fun fruity flavors too. Anything that you can ice and kind of like a replacement for juice or sugary drinks. And sometimes because people stay up so late in the summertime, at least here in Alaska, because we have 24 hours of sunlight in the summertime, then they're wanting things that are like caffeine free, right? Because they need to go to bed at some time. So
yeah, here in Mexico, they drink hibiscus tea a lot.
So
That's
we have
caffeine
hibiscus
free, and
some of our
my kids love it.
Mm-hmm. That one's super popular. Then you start going into fall, you've got the spiced teas, masala chai. Then you're moving into like, or mints, like the remind you of Christmas or Thanksgiving, or an orange spiced tea or a black tea then. But green teas seem to be very popular seasonality around the springtime and leading into summer when
That's
people
so
want something.
interesting. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I love that spectrum that you painted. Thank you. So if someone's, exploring your website as I was earlier, what do you point them to as sort of like a starter? It's always the variety pack, or is there, like your sort of most loved blend?
Oh, well, so the variety pack, the sampler, I always forget that is actually one of our consistent bestsellers, because I'm so used to like people asking me very, individual questions. But our bestseller out of the entire tea company that is a single flavor, not a variety pack, is the 1,000-mile tea. This tea is perfect for the coffee drinker. It has as much caffeine as 4 cups of coffee. So if you're having to switch off of coffee, you need something low in acid and tannins, and that's something that doesn't cause heart palpitations or acid reflux. The 1,000-mile is going to help anyone who's like a coffee drinker who can't drink coffee anymore because their doctor says so or whatever, to still have that caffeine, but not that harshness that coffee can sometimes give you.
Such a great name. Well, thank you so much, Jenny Tse. I think I learned more about tea in this short little bit than I have in the last 10 years. I really appreciate you painting how it can be a way of life, all of the benefits, really all of the variety and the enjoyment that one can get out of not just 1 or 2, but up to 4 or 5 steepings of high quality tea. Is there anything else you want to leave us with? Any last bits of tea wisdom?
Yeah, if anyone wants a free copy of my book, I have a digital version of my book that talks about all these different health benefits of different kinds of tea and the quality of tea and how you can tell. It's absolutely free. It's just a PDF download, and you can go to sippingstreams.com/mybook.
Beautiful.
So you don't even have to know the name of the book.
We'll put that in the show notes. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks again for listening to the Wellness as a Way of Life podcast. As you know, we love bringing you valuable content that helps you improve your wellness. This podcast is sponsored by the Wellness as a Way of Life course. The course experience is the ultimate and only wellness course you need to have in your back pocket. If you're looking to feel more confident and at ease in your own skin with consistent energy, this course is the perfect solution for you. And the best part, as a listener of the podcast, you'll get an exclusive discount on the course. Just use the promo code WELL4LIFE at checkout to receive 10% off of your purchase. That's capital W ELL, the number 4, capital LIFE at checkout. 8 incredible women have taken the Wellness as a Way of Life course and can attest to the massive value it provides. Consisting of 60 plus audio lessons, a dozen videos, the Wellness as a Way of Life workbook, and the Wellness as a Way of Life daily tracker, menus, playlists, readings, and the Megan Swan Wellness Resource Vault. It makes it the most comprehensive, less is more, holistic wellness course on the market. So if you're ready to take your wellness skills to the next level, head over to the website linked here in the show notes and enroll in the Wellness as a Way of Life course today. Hey there, one last thing I wanted to share with you. If you're enjoying this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you could rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. It really does help us grow the show, and this being so important to me to get this message out to more women to help them optimize their wellness and ultimately their lives. This is my mission, and I would greatly appreciate it if you could support the podcast by rating and reviewing. Thanks in advance. Have a good one.